Okay, today's video is going to go over task analysis. So task analysis is another instructional method that you might use when you are working with a student who needs to have a skill broken down into small bits. All right, in comparison to discrete trial, you're not teaching content, but instead you're teaching a procedural skill or a skill that has a certain sequence. So when we think about skills that use task analyses, we would think about tying shoes, we would think about brushing our teeth, things that have to happen in a certain order, okay? They happen over time. So you can think about a task analysis as kind of like a recipe for how to complete a complex skill, a skill that has to be broken down into certain sequence. Today I'm going to use actually a recipe in order to teach how to use a task analysis at home. So my son is actually going to go through a task analysis that I've made. If you think about how to set up a student or your child to be successful in being able to complete those complex skills on their own without future help, all right, a visual is the best way to do this, okay? A visual is always there. It's kind of like your recipe, and it will help the student guide through the process without further help from a parent or from a teacher. When you think about your visual that you're going to use for a particular student or for your child, set that visual up to be at their level. If they can read, then use words and sentences, okay? If they can't read, then you can use pictures or photographs, right? Whatever is at their level. And another way you can actually do it is through a video model, where you actually videotape yourself doing it or someone who looks like them doing it, and then they can watch that video over and over until they're able to do that same complex skill on their own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over to my son, and he's going to go through the steps that I have listed, and if he needs a prompt, then I'm going to prompt him. If he needs a little bit of help, then I'll know that maybe my task analysis is not as detailed as it needs to be, okay? So I might have to make some edits to it, but basically that first time through is kind of telling you whether or not your task analysis is going to work for your student or for your child. And that will help you determine what you need to change in order to allow that student or your child to become independent in that skill. So turn it over to my son, and he will read the step, and then he will complete the step. So we'll see how well I've written out a task analysis.
How to make scrambled egg in a mug. Get a clean mug from the cupboard and put it on the counter. Get an egg from the refrigerator and put it on the counter.
All right, so right now he's not able to find the eggs, and so I'm going to guide his arm to the eggs and where they're located. All right, we call that a physical prompt, okay? You don't have to use a physical prompt with your child. You can use a gesture, or you can just tell them, use a verbal prompt. Hey, the eggs are over on the second shelf, right? But at that point, he needed a prompt.
Put rest of eggs back.
So right there, he forgot to close the refrigerator door, so I would have to make sure that as part of the sequence, I would say, make sure the refrigerator door is closed.
Crack egg on edge of mug. Empty egg until contents are all in mug. Throw away eggshell. Wash hands, soap, and dry hands.
So far I've had some of these steps be independent, right? Some of them need to be prompted. Some of them were a little bit errors, and I had to do a little bit of correction in order to get them to be correct responses. And so that data on that step-by-step is going to tell you whether or not you need to modify some of these components of your task analysis.
Get work from silverware drawer. Mix egg and milk until consistency all milky yellow. Put in microwave for 30 seconds.
Okay, so now I'm gonna have to interrupt because there's an error, right? And he is totally playing the part. He knows that he's not supposed to microwave what?
A fork.
Exactly, but my task analysis was not descriptive enough, so I need to make sure that now my next step, we would remove the fork before we would put the mug in the microwave. So the next time through, obviously, I'll modify my task analysis for that. Make sure you read that out loud.
Check with a clean fork. If it comes out, put in microwave for 30 seconds. Check with clean fork. If it comes out, clean slap the comma E. If not, repeat for 10 seconds. It seems like it's half cooked.
Half cooked? All right, add 10 seconds.
Okay. Now is completely cooked.
All right, so make
Then
sure.
eat.
All right, so obviously there are a couple of errors in my task analysis, right? So I will make sure that I will add in that you do not microwave the fork. You take the fork out before you put the mug in the microwave. And if you think about a task analysis, so I also might need to add, right, that we let it set and rest for probably 20 seconds before we eat it so we don't burn our tongue, okay? But the task analysis, the end of it, that is the reinforcer, that last step. All right, they then get to enjoy the reinforcement that they have created, okay? So if you think about tying your shoes, they're now able to run without falling over and tripping on their shoes, their shoelaces, okay? So that end behavior becomes that last step and becomes the reinforcement, all right? So we have now completed our task analysis. He was able to do most of it without me having to break it down further. I will have to add a couple of steps. And remember that when you are observing them do this, you are now learning where you need to do a little bit more teaching, where you might need to prompt physically or gesturally in order to help them complete their steps independently. That is a task analysis and how you can use it to teach a sequential skill. Thank you for joining us.